You are now listening to Sanity at the Movies. Hey, everybody, it's Sanity at the Movies, SDCC edition. That stands for San Diego Comic-Con, the corporate event that nerds think is for them. And we are going to talk about that today with our customary good cheer. You know,
it wouldn't hurt if it wasn't true.
Let me just get this off my chest. A lot of the podcasting journey that you're going on with me, Nathan, is the journey of someone who's torn between two different desires. And one desire is to be honest about how stupid everything is, and the other desire is to like things. And I like liking things. It's more fun to like things than not like things, especially when it comes to pop culture and stuff. You know, there's a certain kind of person that can get a little cachet on the internet by just hating everything and being above everything and pretending like everything's stupid and nothing's exciting to him. And he wasn't excited about seeing Disney redo such and such brand or see Star Wars come back or anything like that. But you know, I actually do like things. Beneath my cynical heart beats the heart of an idealist. Beneath my cynical heart beats...
Yes.
I have two hearts, actually. Much like, insert nerdy thing with two hearts. Doctor Who, much like Doctor Who. I have two hearts. I knew there was a nerdy pull I could make for somebody that had two hearts. It's Doctor Who. I've got two hearts. One's the heart of a cynic. One's the heart of an idealist. I like liking things, but...
Me too. Liking things is fun.
I think Jake likes liking things a little bit more than I do, maybe. That doesn't make him a bad person. Would you agree that you like liking things better than I like liking things?
I would agree with that, yeah.
And I like not liking things more than you like not liking things, maybe. Although I'm not going to let you entirely off the hook. You like not liking things.
Yeah, I
too.
do like to not like things.
But did I say who we are? I'm Nathan, your humble and obedient host. That's Jake, Pastor Jacob Menzel.
Hey, guys.
And we're going to talk about Comic-Con today. And there's a lot of things. I don't know. I guess that's enough prelude. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk first about Marvel. They were the stars of the show this year, apparently.
They blew it all up.
They blew it all up. So I don't know if we just want to go sequentially through what they, like their release schedule.
Yeah, I think that's probably a smart thing. Because what they did was they put a great big timeline up there with question marks all over it. And they went through and they started filling it all in.
Right, exactly. Which is
run through and comment on each part of it or not.
First, what I will say, kind of interesting and fun, is that Warner Brothers chose not to make any kind of a splash at Comic-Con with DC. Like
There's
nothing.
no DC anything.
And they've got stuff that I might personally be a little bit more excited about than any of the stuff that Marvel. They've got that Joker movie.
The only thing that was DC related was James Gunn saying that Guardians Volume 3 is taking a back seat to
Suicide Squad.
To Suicide Squad.
Right. But they just chose to sit it out for whatever reason.
That was just, that was actually a Marvel announcement.
Right. But, all right, we'll go through these things. So you got your Black Widow.
Yep.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
You think ScarJo can do a standalone movie? I guess that's a stupid question. She's done lots of standalone movies.
It'll be better than Captain Marvel for a straight up Marvel feminist female hero standalone flick.
Yes.
You know, if for some reason Black Widow manages to be worse than Captain Marvel, then you can come and shove it in our face.
I predict that you're right. Reading between the lines, it feels to me like Scarlett Johansson is a lot less woke than Brie Larson. Like Scarlett Johansson feels like the kind of person that's woke because you have to be woke to survive in the industry. Brie Larson is actually woke. Brie Larson.
Yeah. Well, and they're going to give her a good supporting cast. They got David Harbour in there.
That'll be fun.
He's flying high right now.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they put young Dumbledore.
Jude Law,
yeah.
Yeah, Brie Larson had a nice cast supporting her. Sam Jackson.
Yep.
The people that you haven't heard of, like the lady that played her
best friend.
Her best friend was good. Like everybody was good in that movie.
Yeah.
And Brie Larson, I will say again, I said this in a couple episodes ago, she's a good actress. She's just an annoying person. But she was an interesting, risky choice, which did not, in my mind, pay off at all.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's easy to say, well, they made a dumb choice. No, they didn't make a dumb choice. You liked it when they took risks before, so let them take a risk here. But she was a bad risk. So, Black Widow. Then you got The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Are we excited about this one, Jake? This is
Not
a TV
really.
show on Disney Plus.
I'm not excited about that one. I never thought that Sam and Sebastian Stan Bucky had. I mean, people really dug the whole like them fighting to be Cap's BFF, kind of like being annoyed with each other, being in the back seat of the car together,
right?
All that sort of thing.
I thought that stuff was cute. I really liked Falcon a lot. I liked his character. I liked in Winter Soldier. I thought it was moving that he was willing to just drop everything in his life to help Captain America because he was such a. It was a little bit of that.
He was a much better character than Bucky ever was.
Yeah, Bucky's the problem here. But I did like that old-fashioned kind of patriotic. It was kind of the last before they ruined everything with Chris Evans being all woke and everything like that.
Yeah.
But it was kind of the last real feeling we got of just like, oh, you're Captain America. Of course I'll support you. You know, it's just that old-fashioned kind of do-goodery that I really like. Yeah. So I liked his character, and I'd like to see more of him. But Bucky, for me, was always a zero, and it always felt like they were trying to put more emotion on this poor actor. I don't know whether he's good or bad, but he just always felt miscast and like a pretty boy. Now, I haven't watched you've watched, what's it called? The first Captain America movie much more recently. I haven't seen it since
First
it came
Avenger.
out. Is his part good in that? I barely remember him. I couldn't even told you what he looked like until he showed back up in Winter Soldier.
It's pretty small. I mean, it's really just about Captain America. And yeah, it is like, you know, they've got some setup stuff at the beginning.
Right.
You know, they're best friends or whatever. And then
if they'd really nailed that, though, then
Cap has to go and rescue Bucky, and that's how he proves himself and becomes Captain America.
Right.
Like the hero and not just the lame figurehead for bond sales.
Right.
War bonds. But yeah, no, I was the same way. I didn't really track. I was kind of a latecomer to the MCU in the first place, but I really wasn't tracking like, oh, this guy I'm supposed to like recognize that he's Cap's best friend and there's a whole thing here. Nah.
Yeah, really, the first Captain America movie, obviously hindsight's always 20/20, but that's what the movie should have just plain been about. Like how
he really establishing
the story is how he lost his best friend, basically. That has to be one of the main stories. And I guess people would say it is, but it doesn't really land in a way
that pays off in the later films. The way that they want and expect and ask for it to.
Right. The later films are trying to pay off something that
just wasn't as well set up as it needed to be.
You're never feeling what they're expecting to. That said, fine, whatever.
We'll have Disney Plus. We'll probably give it a shot. No, we will certainly give it a shot.
Oh yeah.
No question about that.
Yeah, no, I will too. I won't necessarily give it that many chances if it's not interesting right off the bat.
Yeah.
I think, especially if it's going to be more grounded and have action that's about on par with those Netflix Marvel shows and not really special effects extravaganza. We can't spend $1 billion every episode. There's not going to be a lot to hook me if they don't actually do something really interesting with the characters. I think this goes for all the TV shows. And so it's just a question of who the writers are going to be and what they're going to write for it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything intrinsically interesting. I don't think there's anything intrinsically uninteresting about that show. Like,
it's an open book. What can you make of these two characters and what chemistry can you build and what kind of stories can you tell?
Right.
What kind of stories are you wanting to tell? What are they going to be doing in the world moving forward in a post-Endgame world?
Yeah. But the big question that they may be assuming is answered, but I don't assume is answered is, why should I care?
Yeah.
Next, we've got The Eternals, and then Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Is it Shang-Chi? Shang-Chi or is it Shang-Chi?
It's Chi. Yeah, sure. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I don't know. I don't know who that is. I don't know.
I don't either.
I know that it's a blow struck for representation. That's the only thing that I've heard the chattering class chatter about this one. It's
we
Asian.
Haven't had an Asian lead yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
So,
yay.
Well, I'm interested in that one because if we have like a young Donnie Yen, martial arts, kung fu type of film, I'm all about that.
I am all about that. I also feel particularly mistrustful of Marvel to do that sort of thing well. Like kung fu, I want to watch a foreign kung fu movie made by kung fu people, generally speaking. Yeah. Kevin Feige is not who I would trust to do
pick a great
kung fu movie or to
build a great. The apparatus that they have built isn't for kung fu; it's for spectacle.
Right, and kung fu.
Although the Russos in Winter Soldier had some, I thought, really great hand-to-hand scenes.
Yeah, I don't know. They're edited a little chaotically for my taste.
More chaotically in Civil War than in Winter Soldier, in my opinion.
I don't actually agree with that. That's interesting because I've had other people say that. To me, Winter Soldier is edited better it tells a story through the chaos in a compelling way that's fun, and I think that's what people mean when they say that it has the better action. But in terms of actually knowing what the characters are doing in the action scenes, I would argue that all the post-Civil or Winter Soldier Russo brothers movies have been better about just spatial awareness.
The whole scene on the carrier or whatever on the ship, everything at the ship at the very beginning of Winter Soldier was pretty great.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And Cap fights that French guy.
Yeah, but then like I always think of the elevator scene, and everybody loves the elevator scene. And the elevator scene.
I love the elevator scene.
What's that?
The elevator scene is pretty shaky cam, but like it's still fun.
Oh, it's a great setup. It's like an iconic scene, the way that they set it up, and you know that it's like supposed to be the coolest thing. But that's what makes me feel kind of bad about it, is because it's like you are expecting the coolest scene in all the Marvel. Captain America's on this elevator. You know exactly what's going to happen, and then it's building up to it like a spaghetti western, and then it happens, and then it's just like, oh, well, I'm sure something happened. I wish I would have been able to see it a little bit better. But people always put that one like in their top 10 Marvel action scenes, and to me it's one of the top 10 disappointments, because the difference between what they were going for and what they got is...
I think it's pretty great.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. But I do not let it off the hook. Because...
You're a grumpy person.
I'm a grumpy person
who likes to not like things.
Who likes not to like things. And because you let them get away with it there because you like it, then they go and they do more of it, and you suddenly don't like it. The charm wears off, and then you come complaining back to me, and you say, oh, well, the action scenes weren't as good in such and such a movie, or, you know... Like Jake, if we had just held them accountable for Winter Soldier, then maybe we wouldn't have had the problems with the action that we had in Civil War. You know what I mean?
Winter Soldier was a breath of fresh air.
I know, but
the whole MCU.
But what people can do, though, and this is going to be the most condescending thing I say all year, people can hold two thoughts in their heads, and they can say, this is really good and a big breath of fresh air, and it has problems, and we should hold them accountable for these problems and say, we don't like the problems, but we like the really cool stuff. And what people always feel like they have to do is choose between the two things.
Well, it was hard to see in the moment, is I think part of the point.
Yeah, like, you're right, and that's why I am being a condescending ass when I say that, because I don't know why am I condescending, Jake? We'll just make this episode me processing my own angst about these things. It's because I really care about action cinema. I'll just wrap myself in that,
as opposed
that
to
mantle.
Nobody else.
No, I know lots of people do, but it's like, okay, I'm not saying anyone else is wrong. Let me just explain my way of thinking. When I come to a scene like that in Winter Soldier, I am looking at it as part of a lineage, and I'm thinking Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm thinking Mad Max. I'm thinking Bruce Lee. I'm thinking about all the kung fu and all the fight scenes and all the different ways there are to do this. And I don't expect that every filmmaker or that every film goer is going to have those reference points, but I do expect that the Russo brothers, being experts in their fields, would have those reference points. And so when they come to an elevator scene, like, and they're getting in the ring, you know, Hemingway always said when he wrote, like, he was getting in the ring with Shakespeare, he's getting in the ring. If you're going to get in the ring with Spielberg, with George Miller, with John Woo, with the great action guys, what kind of, and you have all this huge apparatus and this machine behind you and all this money, what excuse do you have not to actually do something great? That's just what I always think. Why are we as a people willing to settle for a breath of fresh air? You know, a breath of fresh air is nice, but what about perfection? What about greatness? What about...
Maybe perfection is just really, really hard, even if you have a whole lot of money.
Yeah, it is, but it doesn't feel to me like they're trying and failing at perfection. It feels like they're settling sometimes with some of these things.
Maybe they were settling when they hired the Russo brothers.
Yeah,
Maybe the Russo brothers have limitations and they can only give you the best that they can. And maybe that is the best that the Russo brothers can give you.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. If I was in charge of Marvel, then I would only cast really talented people and we would do really great things instead of the mediocre things that other people do.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Well, so my example, okay, fine. Steven Spielberg is a genius, but Steven Spielberg, he saw what James Bond was doing. He wanted to film a James Bond movie. They wouldn't let him do it. So him and George Lucas get together and they concoct Indiana Jones. where's that creativity? Where's that spark? Where's that ambition?
John Wick.
Yeah, I think that actually is where it is. But it's kind of relegated to B movies and to pulps and things like that. And that's fine, I guess. But I wish that our A-listers, who I think it fails routinely at this, but
Lord and Miller.
Who's that?
Not the answer to your question, but
yeah, Lord and Miller are a great example. Well, so Nathan, why are you grumpy about them? Well, okay, you got me there. I should be more appreciative of them, and I will strive to in the future. This will be my Scrooge moment. Spider-Verse is the best movie of all time.
You heard it here first, guys.
It's really good. It is actually really good, and I admitted that it was. But what's his face? Christopher Nolan, to me, feels like someone who's, in some ways, this is going to sound snobby again, but he's not as talented. Like, his action scenes aren't always cut together in a very good way, but he's always trying. Like, he has his big set pieces. It's like, this is going to be the set piece for the movie, and this is going to be the big chase in Gotham, or this is going to be the...
Do you respect Nolan for always swinging for the fences?
Yeah, he swings for the fences and comes up with something interesting and original and does it practically. And, you always hear the stories going into his movies, like, we rented out an airplane so that we could have Bane do the thing, and we actually turned the airplane upside down. I'm not saying everybody has to do it practical. I don't mind digital. But what I like is that spirit of, we're just going to go for it. Mm. Whereas with the Rousseau brothers, what it feels like, whatever the reality is, what they managed to communicate to me is, we have a way to do this with shaky cam and stuff to just get it done. We have a way to get our quota of shots for the day and put them together in a way that will work and tell the story. But we're not like inspired. And, those guys don't come from action filmmaking, so maybe they shouldn't be. But I wish the evil producer was like, all right, boys, get out of the way and let my genius choreographer and my genius.
But I thought that that's like kind of what they have is.
Yeah, I think
genius choreography and action and special effects teams that come in and take a lot of those types of things out of the hands of.
I think that they do, and I just wish that there was more
genius
in that. Anyway, maybe everybody hates me now. I don't know how to get out of it though. So, WandaVision.
The most interesting thing about that is that it is set in a post-Endgame world, and it ties in to the MCU moving forward. Mm-hmm. And the real question is this in our timeline in a way that we're going to get Vision back? Mm-hmm. He's going to be saved by Shuri or something like that, reconstructed. He's still there and he just needs a power source without the Mind Stone or whichever stone it was.
Right.
Or is this like in a split, part of the multiverse, and it's going to tie in with Doctor Strange? And
they have said, or no, the Russo brothers said they thought they should stay away from the multiverse.
I think they should stay away from the multiverse. I think they should stay strictly in our timeline.
Once you allow yourself the creative license to do anything you want like that, it really lowers the dramatic stakes, because it just means no one's ever really dead.
Nothing's at stake,
right.
And therefore, I care much less about WandaVision if it's in a different if it's in a parallel universe than if it's in our universe.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Next, Doctor Strange in the multiverse.
You don't want to say anything more about WandaVision?
Oh, well,
there's really not a lot to say about it.
Paul
Bettany's pretty great.
I'm actually probably weirdly more excited about that one than The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I say weirdly because
love story instead of bromance.
Well, it's weird because you'd think like The Falcon and Winter Soldier, on the face of it, if somebody was just pitching me the idea for the story, they sound cooler. But Scarlet Witch and Paul Bettany had a relationship that was interesting. They had a little character
they have
arc.
Powers that are interesting.
Yeah, and I liked Elizabeth Olsen in the role.
Are they going to be able to put the money in for special effects to really allow their... I mean, she can do some awesome... They can both do some awesome things in the movies.
Right.
Are they going to be able to live up to that all the time?
Well, presumably red digital flames or whatever aren't that expensive, relatively speaking. So she could probably still make some people go flying and stuff like that. Wire fu kind of stuff. What I bet they do, which is they find an excuse to have Paul Bettany, assuming he comes back, not wear a red costume, like have to be Inhuman guise all the time.
Or simply choose to be Inhuman guise all the time the way that he was in that.
Which being written into a corner like that can be the heart of can trigger great creativity. You know, sometimes when you have a limited budget, I mean, watch an old X-Files, watch an old Twilight Zone. You know, sometimes when you're trying to do this kind of stuff on a small budget, you have to get creative, and it can be really great.
Yeah. Yep.
You got the Loki show, or no, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. What a wonderful old pulp magazine title. That's what I think about that.
That's
one.
a film. That's not a TV show.
Yeah.
Everything we've discussed up till now is a TV show that's coming out on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So that one they said is going to be a horror film.
Yeah, by
That's
which
interesting.
They don't mean anything that would register as a horror movie, probably to anyone that actually likes horror movies.
They just mean it's going to have
it's gonna be dark and
a darker twist on the MCU.
Have monsters. Probably a reference point for the level of horror would be Stranger Things. You know, like creepy, crawly
weirdness,
strictly PG-13 kind of. Oh no, the monster kind of stuff, which could be good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really love the first Doctor Strange, although I think it has one of the more clever endings of any Marvel movie. It has a actual screenplay with a third act written instead of the third act basically just being we need to run around and get to the glowy thing.
Yeah.
And turn the glowy thing off or blow up the glowy thing. So that's fun.
It was one of the more trippy, interesting visually.
Yeah, visually it was good. I think I had that so hyped that it was maybe not as good as I wanted it to be. Like, I was really expecting a lot because it was really sold. You saw all these articles about like, it's finally the first Marvel movie with just a wacko visual hallucinogenic stuff. And it was kind of, but it wasn't that exciting.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
That in there.
And I just, Benedict Cumberbatch didn't really do it for me in that.
Yeah, me neither. I don't like, both Benedict Cumberbatch and Hugh Laurie's American has a certain kind of nondescript, cliched.
I'm sure it's like if I do a British accent, you know, if I try, I can't even do it, you know. I'm sure they'd say the same thing, like, what British are you doing here? It just sounds like, even if you're hitting the individual words correctly, it
just feels a little, I mean, I'm sure your British actually feels a lot bit off. But
yeah, my British accent just feels like bogus. They're piece of garbage.
They're both fine at it. But they both feel just a little bit off, a little bit nondescript, a little bit.
Yeah, well,
in the same way.
I'm sure that they did decide where their character came from, but what it sounds like is that they didn't. It sounds like they're just doing an American accent, and of course, there's no such thing as an American accent. There's a Boston, there's a Midwest, there's an Indiana.
Yeah.
You know, we're here in Southern Indiana. There's people that really talk Southern Indiana.
Tom Holland nails it.
Yeah, Tom Holland's great. And yeah.
He's a better American than most Americans, but
he's doing a specific accent though. He's a city boy. He's
from Queens.
He's Queens, yeah. And he just does that.
He's Queens.
And he doesn't Queens it up to, you know, it's not like some terrible New York accent. It feels
natural.
No, it just feels very natural. Yeah, you don't even think about it. But yeah, and plus Benedict Cumberbatch is so famous for having an awesome voice. Yeah. Like, that's his whole deal. Like, he played Smaug the dragon because you cast him for his voice. Like, that's half of his power.
They did. I never saw the Dr. Seuss the Grinch. He did an American accent for that too. Yeah, I think he did one in that too. Right?
I was like, why would you get him? Especially thinking about the Grinch, which had Boris Karloff, who has this wonderful British lispy voice, who performed in the old animated thing. Like, let Benedict Cumberbatch be British. Maybe it's his fault. Maybe he just likes the challenge of doing accents and voices and characters and stuff, but he shouldn't. He should just always play Sherlock. That's what we're paying money for when we see this guy. I can understand him not wanting to, but for me as a consumer, if I'm paying for a Benedict Cumberbatch performance, same way with Downey, I'm really paying for Tony Stark and that whole persona, and I don't want Downey to do anything much else. If I'm paying for Cumberbatch, I want Sherlock, basically. Sorry, Cumberbatch. I mean, you can do the imitation game and stuff on the side, but if you're going to do a big populist thing, then just give me the Cumberbatch that I want.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to take on a populist film, do populist art. Right.
If you were basically cast to be Sherlock on the strength of Sherlock, then just give me Sherlock. You're making $1 billion. You can do it. They also wrote him weird, and that they gave him a lot of Tony Stark-esque humor.
Yeah,
which the Marvel movies have done a good job of being humorous, even with other.
Well, they've sometimes they've taken some time, but they've always found eventually a way to lean into the strengths of an actor and his natural sense of comedy. The most notorious example of this was Thor.
Right.
It took them 3 films to figure it out.
Right.
But when they did, it really worked.
Yeah, he really locked in and it was great. But the thing about Benedict Cumberbatch is that he doesn't seem actually like a funny guy. He seems like a very serious guy. And when he plays Sherlock, they make Sherlock witty by letting him be serious and acerbic in a way that to us, the audience, is funny, but isn't really funny to Sherlock. Sherlock just takes the world super seriously. And that's actually what's like Benedict Cumberbatch. If you watch him in an interview, the quips don't roll off of him
right
the way they do off of
it's a different kind of, he has charm, but it's a different kind of charm.
Yeah, and I did like him. I will say I liked him in Endgame and in Infinity War. I thought
he was better in those movies.
And having him play off
I think
of
that I think
Downey.
that by the time they get to this next one, they'll have him figured out.
Yeah, I assume you're probably right. And it's got a great title. And yeah, I'm excited about that one, I guess. A lot of times the second movie will be better than the first one, just generally speaking. Although, has that ever actually held true for a Marvel movie?
The second one better.
Iron Man 2 sucks or isn't as good. Thor 2 is
the worst
famously
Marvel movie of all time. Avengers 2.
Avengers 2. Has there ever been a great part 2 in Marvel?
I mean, the one that you could argue for would be Guardians 2. But it's got so much wrong with it.
That movie takes a long time to clear its throat, and it's pretty vulgar. Of course, Winter Soldier. That's great too.
Yeah, Winter Soldier is the only...
That almost feels like a 1. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, it's definitely a new thing.
Yeah. And then if you look at it that way, then Civil War is the 2, and Civil War is pretty great, but it has its problems.
Yeah.
So anyway, anything else to say about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
Nope, but I'm interested in it.
Me too. Then you got your Disney Plus series of Loki.
I mean, Tom Hiddleston's great. That Loki character's great. I have no idea what they're going to do, but I'm happy to check it out.
Yep, me too. I'll reserve judgment. I'm sure it'll be fun one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm afraid of is I am vaguely aware of this show called Lucifer. Are you aware of this? I sometimes scroll past it on Netflix or something, and what I think it's about is Lucifer abandons hell or something like that, which is all bad for all kinds of reasons, but artistically it's bad. It just sounds corny, and that he leaves behind the dark dominion of Hades and comes to Earth and he's a detective, and he uses his Lucifer powers to help solve cases. That sounds so lame.
That sounds really stupid.
And I would be a little bit afraid of
that kind of thing.
Well, Loki's got a hideout, and in order to save money, we're going to have him hide, and to keep normal interest, we're going to have him hide out on Earth. So
he's going to adopt a low-key persona.
Yeah.
A low-key persona.
Yep. Nicely done, Jake.
Thanks.
My hat is off to you. Yeah, and then he's like going to meet Earthlings that are because this is bad Loki again. You know, like hasn't been as redeemed as the other Loki was. So he'll be like
back in time.
This is presumably the Loki that escaped in.
That's what I thought,
Endgame.
but then I thought I saw something about like telling the story of Loki intervening in human history or some dumb stuff like that.
Oh, that sounds awesome, actually. I could enjoy Loki as Doctor Who, just having different adventures in different eras and
meeting Caesar and Shakespeare and
tricking George Washington into winning the war, fiending for that actually sounds pretty fun.
I mean, if it's Loki as Doctor Who, okay, that is a strong pitch. But again, the idea to me of it being set in a time where there are no present stakes makes me care less.
Yeah. Well, that brings us back to my other bad idea, which is Loki has to hide out in a small town that looks an awful lot like it's in California, even though it's actually not supposed to be in the story. And he becomes a detective or works for the police or something. And he meets a human woman who's strong, yet inspires him to be a better Loki than, and he starts to see that he should care about people and not just trick them for his own gain all the time. And every week he solves a new case or
all right, let's move on. Okay. It'd be better than that,
hopefully, but I'm gonna laugh and say I told somebody so, if not you specifically, because I think they actually are smarter than that, but I want to reserve the right to bring this podcast back if they decide to do that. Hawkeye.
So this one is
Another TV show. This one starring Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye.
Yeah, and he is training his replacement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's her name? Kate something or something?
I don't know. It's a chick.
Yeah, so it's Hawkeye training the next generation Hawkeye, who's some chick of some kind. So we've got our first sort of gender character swap where there's going to be a new Hawkeye, and that Hawkeye is going to be a woman. There's going to be a passing of the baton and probably some father-daughter-y relationship that could be well done, but is fitting in very nicely with Marvel's move towards feminizing the whole MCU.
Well, I think that's all that she really wrote on Hawkeye, unless you have more to say. But what you just said actually leads us into Thor 4, which is...
It is the mother of all abominations.
Well, and also the one that will almost certainly be...
the best.
The most entertaining.
It'll be the most fun. I hate it already.
Me too.
I hate it because I know that it's going to be great. When I see it in theaters, I will love it, and I will also hate it.
And you'll be like, oh man, I'd love to show this to my kids because...
But I can't.
Yeah. So,
why? We'll tell you why.
Well, let's just tell them the title first because that'll help. Thor 4, Love and Thunder. It's another wonderful title, actually.
It is a great title.
They're embracing the campiness with these titles.
Is super great, too. It is like Thundercats, like 1980s Thundercats style artwork. It's pretty great.
There are there are three important facts you should know. First of all, this movie is going to be written and directed by what's-his-face?
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi, who did Thor 3, the funniest, freshest, most fun Marvel movie that there is, maybe.
Yep. Hemsworth is back.
But then there's the two other things you should know is that Tessa Thompson, who plays Valkyrie, has confirmed that her character will be, I forget, gay or bi. I believe gay.
She's in search of her queen.
She's in search of her queen, yes. Which Tessa Thompson...
That's the quote.
Tessa Thompson identifies as bisexual in real life. And
she's bi. She's been pushing and saying for
Captain
years
Marvel and
now
her
that Valkyrie's at least bi.
Right.
And got them to intimate and even write, I think, a scene for Ragnarok, which if you saw Ragnarok, you got that sort of intimated. There was a thing that happened in a flashback and there was another woman and whatever, but we don't really...
Yeah.
There's enough for plausible deniability. Well, now it's explicit. She's made it explicit. She's been pushing and lobbying with Marvel, and at Comic-Con, Feige confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Love and Thunder, Valkyrie will be searching for her queen.
Right. Well, let's talk about that maybe for a second before we talk about the third interesting fact, because I do want to say Disney, what they want to do, in a perfect world, what they'd like is to retain our business. Yep. Just from a bottom line, the evil cigar chomping executives that make all the decisions, they don't actually want to be socially aware because they want to keep the maximum amount of profit. What they do want to do is also keep the maximum amount of profit by appeasing all the people that want them to be socially progressive. And so what they want to do, I submit to you, is not be social justice warriors, but find a way to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of how that plays out as to how good or bad we'll end up feeling about it. I mean, it's going to be bad one way or another, but it could be full on Last Jedi.
Well, a good
the movie
way...
just feels like it has an agenda.
Right. Yeah. Last Jedi versus this next Star Wars film is a good comparison. So is Aladdin and the Lion King, where Aladdin has this absolutely retarded, standout feminist ballad that stinks.
Right.
Like the song is bad. Like it's not even catchy. It's not like Let It Go or something like that.
Right.
Which, it's just a terrible song. And it's there and it's spoiling the middle of the movie because here's our agenda piece.
Right.
Lion King amps up on the peripheries all kinds of appeasing agenda-y things without sacrificing anything in the story.
Yeah, I would almost put it at like it's the Kathleen Kennedy model versus the J.K. Rowling model. J.K. Rowling really doesn't want her world to be gay, I get the feeling, but she really wants to appease people who want it to be. And so she'll say, oh yeah, that character from way back then was gay, and of course there's gay people, and Of course, there's
but they're dead. So
and Dumbledore and Johnny Depp are in a relationship, but
they were. But that was also a thing that was in the past. Complicates, the present.
Right. And when we make the movie about it, we're gonna have headlines about how it's the text of the movie. And it's gonna be pretty much the text of the movie, but we're gonna make it subtextual enough that your conservative Christians who aren't thinking about it too hard can still watch it and
not feel bad.
Not feel bad. Like, and we're not gonna ever have them say the words. We'll have them stare longingly at each other.
In the mirror of Era said.
We are basically going to do the bare minimum to appease the progressives, and we're going to. It's going to be tricky for us to figure out where that bare minimum is,
and we know that we're not going to be able to ever appease them anyway. But that's okay.
And because they are devouring, nasty monsters of human beings, actually, pretty much no matter what we give them, they will be. It will
never be enough
because the story of Harry Potter.
The leech has 2 daughters.
Yes, exactly. Give. Harry Potter is the story of a cis white male hero on a hero's journey, and that in and of itself is problematic enough that we should probably just burn the whole thing to the ground, is what a certain kind of progressive SJW would say. And so we can't really appease them, but we want to throw them a bone. So there's that style. And then there's what Kennedy let Rian Johnson do in The Last Jedi, which is much more explicitly about deconstructing and tearing down the old ways of doing things. If I had to predict, I'd say Marvel, for all Kevin Feige's lip service to how representation is great and it worked with us for Black Panther and we want more, for all that, that's what he knows he has to say at Comic-Con to appease these nerds. But I don't know that he's actually going to do it. I think he's going to do the bare minimum probably because he wants to make these family-friendly movies, and he knows in his heart of hearts what it means to make a family-friendly movie. I don't know, maybe I'm being unduly optimistic. I'm not saying that the corruption won't eventually swallow the whole thing. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if we were a phase or two out from that. But I would have said the same thing about Star Wars, probably. And Star Wars is moving a lot faster than...
They can't... Yeah, we all would have said they can't possibly try to ruin this first trilogy coming out of buying the property from Lucas. They have to nail this down. Then if they nail this down, they can do whatever they want.
Right.
And in the second film, they blew it all to pieces. So
right.
I think Feige's ready to just
blow it to pieces.
Yeah, we've had 3 phases. We've had our finale. We've broken Avatar. I think he feels like he can do whatever he wants. That we're all gonna give him our money. And he can do things like if he throws in a horror film, if he throws in a kung fu movie, if he services the characters that are still around, then he can do what he wants.
Right. Nobody's
ever cared about Thor, and Thor's a good place to just do whatever the heck you want.
Right. But that could mean anything from, you remember I keep thinking about what a giant rumble Bill Condon, who directed the Beauty and the Beast remake, made about the breaking of the demolishing of barriers that he was doing by having this explicitly gay moment in his movie, and everybody on the conservative side of things was up in arms about it, and the progressives really wanted to cheer, and then it just ended with such a whimper because it was this tiny little moment, and it's not that it's not there, and it's not that it's not wicked, but he was exaggerating what his corporate overlords had actually allowed him to do to try and appease a certain demographic who ultimately weren't happy with him because he'd promised a lot more than what
he delivered.
Yeah. Feige's nothing if not a smart businessman.
Yeah.
So I think in his heart of hearts, he would probably like to have his cake and eat it too, find a way to delay.
Yeah.
Because actually, if you just run the numbers, a large part of our country is pretty conservative and isn't going to like that stuff, and you don't really want to lose their business. And certainly,
and the core Marvel fan base is conservative.
And
because the fact is, the progressive overlords, they don't care about populist filmmaking like Marvel.
Right.
Your average Marvel fan is more likely to be sipping a Coors Light than a craft beer.
Well, and in terms of who actually brings in the money, your average Marvel fan is likely to be in China. And guess what those people don't want? They don't want anything. The movie won't even make it to one of its biggest markets it won't even be allowed past the censors if it's too adventurous.
Yeah.
So your choices, if you're smart and you're Feige and you actually want to get these evil messages in there, I think what you do is what the academics would call you code them in. Exactly. And that's what Hollywood's been doing successfully for years.
For a long time.
And they've brought about great destructive cultural changes that way.
Yep.
But they're shooting themselves in their foot a little bit when they start to try and be more explicit about it.
Brie Larson, or whatever, Captain Marvel is explicitly queer-coded.
Right.
Tessa Thompson is sort of queer-coded.
Right.
And yeah, there will be a lot more of that sort of thing.
There will certainly be more of that, the sort of thing.
Yeah.
How much more explicitness there will be, I think, is a somewhat open question. Although when you bring China into it, that's probably your best hope for keeping it on the coding level and not making it too explicit.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least containing it to some scenes that can be easily excised for other markets.
For the international market.
Right. If you think about the people who are progressive, they don't actually represent, like if you think worldwide, the tip of Western Europe and then the coasts of America are who might want those kinds of things to be explicit. And they don't represent all the money.
Yeah.
A lot of the money is going to come from Middle America and from the Eastern market, whatever the polite way of saying that is, China, basically. Guess what doesn't make money in China? Star Wars. And guess what they wish would make money in China? Star
Wars.
But those movies the originals weren't even allowed over there back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So they've only now, which is fascinating from a moral perspective, because if you were going to say what the philosophy of Star Wars is, you'd say it's kind of Eastern, I guess. But
yeah,
those movies were way too white and whatever, moral in a Judeo-Christian kind of way to ever make it over there back in the day. And they don't have the kind of...
taking inspiration from Buddhism for the philosophy and samurai films for the action.
Right.
But I guess we're talking Japan instead of China there.
Yeah, that's true. With
the action at least.
Yeah. So should we talk about the other major thing from Thor?
Yeah.
Lady Thor.
As
played by Natalie Portman.
The mantle is being passed. The hammer is being passed.
Mm-hmm. From
Hemsworth to Padme Amidala.
Which I don't know a thing about the comics. Apparently that's like a big thing that people remember and like.
I think it's probably a big thing that people pretend to like.
Right.
And pretend to remember. In the same way that they pretended to like Captain Marvel, and they pretended to like the whole Lady Avengers thing that had, like a year run and got canceled because nobody cared about it.
Right. Well, there again, though, I could see them doing it. I don't know anything about how they do it in the comics, but I could see them doing it in a way that, within the constraints of superhero storytelling, is actually pretty conservative. Mm-hmm. There's two ways to do it. One is to lean into Doofus Thor from Endgame, and Doofus Thor is Doofus Thor, and so the torch really does need to be passed to a lady.
Mm-hmm.
And now the lady is the one with all the potency, and Thor's just like jealous and feeling emasculated. That would actually that'd be one way to do it. And it would play into I broke up with her, or whatever it was from Ragnarok. Yeah. And it would play into a lot that they've been doing with Thor.
The other way to do it would be to elevate Thor.
Yeah.
And into an Odin-like or a celestial, eternal kind of transcendent sort of thing.
Yeah, and depending on how you did that, you could have Thor's lady be in an essential, she'd be wielding a hammer and she'd be killing bad guys and stuff, but the coding, since that's a word that we decided to use in this episode, and I'm not blaming you, I was about to use it, the coding could basically be conservative. Like she could be Thor's helpmate,
right,
doing Thor stuff, and they'd both be super powered.
Yeah, just like Black Widow was to Cap and Winter Soldier.
Well, and just like the Black Panther films, being black, are allowed to be much more conservative in their coding. Like all the women are basically very supportive.
And they're all behind their king.
Right. It's all very patriarchal, actually.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's patriarchal, except they all use spears.
Yep. But that's still bad.
Yep, that's still bad.
You know what? Let's just come clean. our recording equipment broke and we're trying to pick up this conversation.
We were way beyond this. Well, not way beyond, but however far beyond it, we have no idea what we were trying to say. We got lost.
Something about spears. I think what we were trying to say is that they could go either way with, I'm just going to lean into the word coding since we're using this embarrassing academic word. We might as well use it. They could go either way with the coding for Natalie Portman's Lady Thor. She could either be like she's the awesome one and Thor is just this emasculated jerk, which is kind of seems natural with what they've been doing with Ragnarok and Endgame and all that sort of thing. And I left her, she didn't leave me kind of vibe to it all. They could lean into that whole thing. Or
they could elevate Thor to another level.
Right.
He can be upgraded, and then she can be up. Instead of sort of replacing him, she's just elevated by sort of being his queen, by being his right hand. And so, if she's the next Thor, if she wields the power of Thor, maybe he wields the power of Odin, or maybe maybe there's some other mythological thing we don't know about, related to Eternals and Celestials and whatnot that allows her to be his Gal Friday still.
Right. And then if even though little Natalie Portman's got to swing a hammer and kill bad guys and stuff, the movie could basically still be within the confines of traditional sexual morality. It's just that
everybody... So long as she doesn't end up being Valkyrie's lover.
Oh, that would be lame. Wow. If they just really wanted to drive us away in droves, if they just wanted to be like, give a middle finger to us, like, this is what we're doing now, we hate men.
Yeah, they could just hook up Tessa Thompson and Natalie Portman and then let fat couch potato Thor go back to bullying people on Fortnite.
Yeah, although they wouldn't actually leave Thor there because they do have to service that character.
Yeah,
since the movie's called Thor, so...
But we have a new Thor.
Well, yeah, but Chris Hemsworth
It's hard to have a new Thor when you have a character whose name is Thor.
And who's a beloved Thor.
Yeah.
I suppose you could have Chris Hemsworth... I don't know. I hope they don't do that. I hope they do the good version that we said, where Natalie Portman is just his wife, basically. They god and goddess, just like Greek mythology,
Yep.
That'd be still seems weird. I think we didn't record this part. Still seems weird just to think about Natalie Portman doing action at all.
Yeah, she doesn't. What I said that we deleted is that she doesn't seem athletic to me, although she did appear as a ballerina in that one film,
The Black Swan. But she played a very vulnerable character in The Black Swan who was like trying to be good at ballet and was being kind of abused by the other. She did not play a commanding ballerina. I think
it's just that Portman, I think, doesn't feel right for these sort of big tent productions.
Yeah, she's always felt out of place.
Yeah, like she doesn't have the charisma, the charm, the something. It's not that she's not pretty. It's not that she doesn't have, a charming smile. It's not that it's just that there's like...
You know what I think it is? This is my theory. I think she doesn't want to be there. She just doesn't feel like she believes it.
So she wants a paycheck.
Well, I don't...
Yeah, that is right. I think you're right about that.
I think she probably comes to set and is happy and does her job, to be the most charitable version possible. Like, she's not just being greedy.
You know who's good at that is Gwyneth Paltrow. She doesn't care at all. She hasn't seen any of the movies. She doesn't even know what movies she's been in.
But she never feels like she's condescending to the material.
Yeah, she's never sideways of the material. She's all in. She's a lovely Pepper Potts. She's a lovely lover to Tony, whatever. She's like awesome.
Yeah, even when they put her in that dumb Iron Man suit and it's embarrassing for all involved. And
she's all in.
She's all in.
She's all in. And then when you talk about it, even when she like kind of gets caught in the off mic, like not knowing that she was in a movie, she's not like...
Jake's referring to an incident where they mentioned, wasn't that great, your part in Spider-Man? And she said, what? I've never been in a Spider-Man movie. Even when that happens.
Even when that happens, she's really sweet about it. So it's not like she's trying to be above it. She's just, she's cute. She's confused. She never cared about those movies, but she did a good job.
Yeah, she came and she gave it her all.
She brought, everything she could to it. And she expresses goodwill about all of it.
She expresses goodwill, and that she enjoyed at least playing off of Robert Downey Jr. There was at least one person that she really respected and had a good artistic experience with.
Yeah, and that's probably why she kept doing it.
Right.
hey, I'm going to make a nice paycheck and I'll have fun shooting some scenes with Robert Downey Jr.
Right.
And I don't ever have to see these movies because they're just junk food anyway.
Well, that's the key to being a good actor in one of these movies. That's an interesting thought, is who condescends to the material, who seems like they're condescending to the material. I'd argue that's the problem with Brie Larson, is that
that's what became the problem with Chris Evans.
Exactly.
It was never
That's
it was not the problem at the beginning with Chris Evans.
No.
Chris Evans was in a humble position. Chris Evans was a nobody who had
not another teen movie.
Not another teen movie.
And dumb
Fantastic Four movie.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody thought Chris Evans was this was his next shot.
Right.
And he just played the material clean, and everybody fell in love with him, and then he got a big head on his shoulders.
Right.
And
you can feel him playing down to Captain America. You just get that sense by the end of those movies, and it's dumb.
Yeah, and they turn it into a whole thing.
Well, that, by the way, I'm going to tie this into something else that we wanted to talk about that's not Marvel. I think how an actor feels about their character and about their position in something is really important. And so you take like Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. thinks Robert Downey Jr. is great. Right. That really works for Tony Stark.
Right.
Well, Chris Evans thinks Chris Evans great. Chris Evans actually thinks Chris Evans is better than Captain America. That doesn't work so well.
Doesn't work so well.
How someone feels. So then you start to think about different performances. You think about the fact that Humphrey Bogart always felt a little bit above his characters, but for somebody like Rick in Casablanca, that feels great Rick. Because the character hates himself.
Yep.
And so Humphrey Bogart feels like he'd rather be doing something else than acting in this movie. It actually works really well.
Because Rick would rather be doing anything than what he's doing.
Yeah,
right.
Rick doesn't want to be in Casablanca any more than Humphrey Bogart wants to be in Casablanca. Now, I'm going to tie this in to this Tom Hanks thing.
Yep. I figured that's what you were going to say.
The Mr. What's it called?
Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers, the wonderful thing about Mr. Rogers was that Mr. Rogers never felt like he had a particular perspective on Mr. Rogers. It just felt... He just had to do that.
He was just Mr. Rogers.
He wasn't self-conscious about it. He did not step back and say, I'm doing something good, or I'm doing something great, or I'm being kind. He is just like, this is what I do.
Nobody should ever pretend to be Mr. Rogers because you can't do it.
That's the problem. Mr. Rogers is the very definition, at least his public persona is the very definition of not having a lot of self-awareness. He's just like doing what Mr. Rogers just does what Mr. Rogers just likes doing.
Yeah.
And so when he's doing, when he puts his feet famously in the water with the black guy, it's like Mr. Rogers just thinks the world should be like this. He's not.
Yeah.
I have to believe Mr. Rogers on some level was probably a little bit more savvy than that. But I mean, he had to have been, right? Because
probably, but
Mr. Rogers seems like he's just a true believer.
He's just like who he is. Like you get these stories that pop up all over the place on Mr. Rogers' birthday or something like that.
Right.
There will be all these tweet threads of people out there with these stories of how, they were in an random elevator in Pittsburgh. Who should get onto the elevator but Fred Rogers? And you start to say something, this show meant a lot to me. And the next thing you know, you're in this like 45-minute conversation where he just stops his day to talk to you and ask how you're feeling. And you end up crying.
Right.
Because he just seems to be the guy that you thought he was on TV when you were 5. And you didn't believe that those people could exist. And you didn't believe that Fred Rogers could actually be that way.
Right.
And it turns out that maybe he actually is maybe he is the hero you imagined he was when you were 5 years old.
And I'm going to say maybe you could find an actor that could play that if it was somebody that we as the audience didn't have any relationship with. But we do have a relationship with Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks, I love Tom Hanks. I think Tom Hanks is a great
actor. Yeah.
But Tom Hanks also loves Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks has a perspective on Tom Hanks, and it's that he's good. Hanks is not in an obnoxious way, but just in a human way. He's a very self-satisfied guy. And that comes across in just in this trailer. You see, like, I am playing a character that I know is a saint, and I know that, and I know that I can do it. Yeah. And that essence imbues this performance, at least in the trailer, of Mr. Rogers. And you
can't separate them. So you can't be locked in the idea of seeing Fred Rogers portrayed on screen. You're always processing Tom Hanks portraying Fred Rogers.
Right. You compare that to Saving Mr. Banks. Did you ever see that one?
No, I didn't see that.
It's worth seeing. It's a fun movie. But he plays Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And that's smart because Tom Hanks has that self-satisfied air. that where I know I'm the kindest man in the world and I'm here to perform as the kindest man in the world. Well, so did Walt Disney. Walt Disney felt like a kindly uncle, but you could always see the wheels spinning, and you knew that he was a savvy, smart, calculating guy who knew that he needed to play Uncle Walt. Tom Hanks is perfect casting for that because Tom Hanks has played Uncle Tom now for most of his adult career, and he's done a good job. Uncle Tom, that's an unfortunate. He hasn't played that kind of Uncle Tom.
Uncle Hanks.
Yes, Uncle Hanks. And so it really works well for Disney. It's actually smart. It's obvious casting, but it's a smart use of obvious casting.
I just don't know who you could cast as Fred Rogers and really pull it off.
I don't know. It'd have to be like so far outside the box that we wouldn't even think about it.
Just let Ben Whishaw get old.
Yeah, Ben Whishaw get old, or I don't know.
And he needs to be somebody you don't have that kind of relationship with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It needs to be somebody that can disappear into a role.
Kind of I've seen him now in a billion things, but Farmer Hoggett, when he first showed up in Babe, was somebody that we didn't know, James Cromwell, the actor. It's just like, that's Farmer Hoggett. Now, since then, I've seen him play villains and suicides and other things. And it's like, okay, Cromwell can do other things.
Right.
But for a brief moment in history, to most people, he just was Farmer Hoggett, this kindly old farmer. And you kind of would need somebody like that to be Mr. Rogers, somebody that just came from nowhere, played the part. You think about other kindly old men, Martin Sheen from West Wing. I mean, they would all have the same problem one way or another that Hanks has. Maybe some British guy could do it. Anthony Hopkins, Mr. Rogers, would actually probably be not a precise. He's too old for it now, and it wouldn't be precisely, he's not a good lookalike, but Anthony Hopkins has that kind of no BS, I'm just going to play this part.
They did have at least a couple of magic moment trick shot where Tom Hanks really looked like Fred Rogers in that trailer. Yeah,
and maybe we'll be eating crow when this movie comes out because we'll go see it, and once you sort of sit with it a while, you get used to it and you like it.
You get lost in it.
You just get lost in it.
It's possible. I mean, the trailer still got emotions and feels from me, but like...
Yeah, but how could it not? You hear the doon, 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 and then they turn into emotional music.
Yeah.
Cheer up, Jake.
And I always obey that.
No, I do. Coke commercials can make me cry. First to admit it.
Yeah. But man, it made me emotional, and it also made me angry. Like, I just don't want to see liars who don't give a rip about and would never want to be like Fred Rogers, trying just up there play acting and pretending that they're Mr. Rogers and that he's some kind of real hero to them.
And not understanding the first thing about what made him great and what made him problematic also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jake, we're just about out of time. Let me see if there was anything. Oh, we should talk about Picard.
I guess did we finish the MCU stuff?
Yeah, actually Thor was the last one.
Did we talk about the Eternals? Or we just skip right over that?
I just read it off a list, and
we don't know anything about it. Angelina Jolie, Camille Nanjiani.
Yeah, it's supposed to have more LGBT. That's another one that they said was going to have some representation in it. Yay! Oh, that one guy's playing Blade. Yay! I guess whatever.
I'm gonna get his name wrong. It's not Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali. Yes.
Yeah.
Which whatever.
It's a hard name for me to say.
To me, there's nothing particularly interesting or uninteresting about Blade. I
never saw those.
If you had seen them, you would realize that they were swaggering Wesley Snipes vehicles, and they were very much...
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I think taking the blade out of Wesley Snipes it just means it's a guy that fights vampires. Well, there's a million things like that,
Where the vampires going to come from in this world?
I don't know. Probably some lame. What does Hulk say? Time travel. Probably just some lame science. Marvel science. I hate Marvel science so much. We can just do whatever we want and call it Marvel science.
In Blade originally, have they always been there?
Yeah, there's just this cabal of vampires that have existed through history.
And there's always been a group of people fighting the...
Well, Blade is... No, there hasn't always been a group. The vampires have always lived on the fringes and preyed on human, just like regular vampire lore. But Blade is a half vampire, half human. Vampire bit his mother, I think, when she was pregnant with him or something like that. Okay. And so he has all of their strengths and none of their weaknesses. So he is trained by Chris Christopherson to hunt vampires, and a fun time is had by all.
Chris Christopherson, huh?
Yeah, he plays Blade's mentor. It's pretty hilarious.
It would be great if it was actually Chris Christopherson and somebody had to play the role of Chris Christopherson.
Yeah. Just get Chris Christopherson to. Well, Chris Christopherson can't really play anything beyond Chris Christopherson, which is what makes it kind of delightful. But you take Wesley Snipes out of the equation, and suddenly it becomes a very generic thing that you could do any number of things with. And so whatever, we'll see what they do.
All right.
I care less about it.
Et cetera,
et cetera. Okay, one final thing we should talk about. We got to the Fred.
Were there Star Wars things?
Nothing particularly exciting, no.
Okay.
That toy line, the Sith Walkers, Rangers, Sith Rangers, what are they?
Sith Troopers.
Sith Troopers, yay!
Yeah. They're stormtroopers, but they're red. Yep. And they use the word Sith, which plays into your nostalgia for the Jedi lore.
Right.
More Abrams magic for you.
Yep.
All right, moving right along.
The Money Milkers, I think, is that what they're called? Picard. That's the one last thing we want to talk about.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart is 79 years old, and he is coming back to play Picard for a little 10 episode run.
Yeah. I'll watch it.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'm not happy about it, but I'll watch it.
I'm not happy about it either, but I'll watch it. Patrick Stewart is old. Mm-hmm. He feels old in this trailer, but it looks like they're going to try to lean into that mostly. I was never a Trekkie. I never watched a lot of Star Wars, but the Star Wars I did watch.
Star Trek, you mean? You just said the Star Wars I did watch.
That's all you need to know, right there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you need to know.
Jake's brain won't even let him say the word Star Trek. It just autofills wars.
The only Star Trek I ever watched, if I ever watched it, was Next Generation.
Yeah, I mean, that's our Star Trek. It was on the TV.
It's just like the thing. It was a fine thing to watch if there was nothing else on TV. So there's that. But I knew when I watched the trailer, I should, because of how the trailer set it up, I should know who this person is. It was 7 of 9.
Right.
And the name 7 of 9 rings a bell, and something about the Borg, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. The trailer looked sufficiently dramatic and interesting, and I want to see dramatic. I want to see an epic story of Jean-Luc Picard.
I like
one last go at saving
the wistfulness. I like the rage against the dying light of it all. I like that part of it. I'm a little less excited about the final dramatic thing. I know there has to be a final dramatic thing, and I'm not upset about that, but the dramatic thing that they seem to be doing just looks so tired to me.
Well, he's got to protect and mentor Neo so that Neo can take down the Borg.
Right, and I could just care less about that aspect of it. I almost think if it, I know this is me just being a grumpy old man. They never would have done this in a million years. But if it could have just been kind of wistful and nostalgic and not had a big doomsday.
They need something.
I know there has to be something, but does it have to be the end of the world? She's what does the guy say at the end of the trailer? Warrior.
She's a destroyer.
The destroyer, yeah.
She's the destroyer. She doesn't know what she is. Nobody knows. Is she here to destroy the Borg? Is she here to destroy all of the universe?
Yeah, okay, Dark Phoenix, okay, Matrix, okay, everything.
Yeah.
Is that really what we want from our Star Trek? I thought Star Trek was about ideas and exploration and optimistic, progressive ideals about exploration and stuff. But I guess not. I guess it's about apocalyptic doomsday.
It'll be fun, probably. Or it'll stink.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart will make it good.
Yeah, how does he not make it?
Remember that we watched that Macbeth thing? What does he do? He eats a pickle or something in one scene. He just gets some. I want to say he gets some pickles out of the fridge and just starts chomping pickles while he delivers Shakespearean dialogue. And it's just such a badass. I'm Patrick Stewart. Guess what?
I can do whatever I want.
He was probably hungry for pickles. What I like to imagine is that it wasn't in the script, but Patrick Stewart just felt like some pickles and said, "You know what? I'm such a great actor that
I can pull this.
I'm going to pull this off. I'm going to take the immortal bard's words and put them to chomping pickles, and you are going to think it's awesome." And you will. That's the thing.
Fat old Data.
Yeah, not a fan of that.
It's kind of creepy.
Well, Brent Spinner is another one of those guys that to me always feels like he's maybe not condescending to the material, but it feels like he knows how much you love him. I'm the most beloved character from a nerdy thing that people really love, and I know it. And I'm going to parlay that. Of course they have to bring back, we don't have to bring back Geordie LaForge or anybody like that, but we're going to bring back.
Can you have Wesley show up so that we can say, "Shut up, Wesley"?
That'd be good. I'd bring back Wesley.
Just for that moment.
They should just have Picard drunk dial Wesley and just tell him to shut up.
He's Picard alone on Earth. Can't make sense of his life before this person shows up. Drunk dials Wesley. Shut up, Wesley.
Shut up, Wesley. Engage.
Engage this.
Yep. I'd watch that. See, that's the kind of example of a great story. We don't need an apocalyptic doomsday chosen one. We just need Patrick Stewart drunk dialing and eating pickles. That really would be enough. You have heard that they are bringing back, what's his face, number 2, Riker and Troy.
Riker and Troy are coming back for that?
Yeah.
I did not read that. I didn't read anything about it. I only watched the trailer.
Riker and Troy are coming back. Data's coming back, and 709's in it for what that's worth. I never watched her series. I don't know. I think she's Voyager. I never watched that.
She has her own series?
No, she was in Voyager.
Oh, okay.
The things I know about 709 or 709, I don't even know how to say her name. Things I know about
7 of
9 is that she's a former Borg.
Yeah.
That she is in Voyager, and that she's pretty famous fan service. Like, she wore this sexy leather outfit, and that's what dudes really liked about her, and it was really lame and cheap.
So if I recognize 7 of 9, I recognize that from Voyager, not from Next Generation.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, weird.
I could be crazy.
Is that the one that had the chick commander?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the dude with the ridges on the side of his head.
Yes, we had that. We had them. We had the really progressive chick commander, and then we had 709, who was like complete, let's throw the fanboys a piece of red meat kind of thing.
Yeah, if we're going to have this like feminist captain, we can at least have some.
Yeah, exactly. So, but now they're bringing her back. Fan favorite, 709, or of 9. Yeah.
7 of 9.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then.
Picard. That'll be good. You know, the showrunner is Michael Chabon, who wrote Wonder Boys, the novel, and The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which got rejected from the booking, but I read, and he's an interesting guy. He is a smart and savvy writer. He's just a good writer. That's all there is to it.
That's exciting.
That gives me a little hope that it'll be something beside. Maybe they just stuck him with a dumb, well, you got to have a doomsday MacGuffin for your plot, which is fine, but maybe he'll do something interesting with it.
Well, yeah, if you have a good writer, they can, that's fine constraints to put them under.
Right.
Do something interesting in the spaces between chasing the MacGuffin.
Right. And folks, I get it. There needs to be a MacGuffin. I get that the MacGuffin should be important, and I get that if you're going to call Picard out of retirement, it has to be something pretty serious.
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to them having a MacGuffin, and I'm not opposed to it being the woman who has the keys to all of whatever, everything locked inside her, and at some point
7 of 9 will have to blow herself up or integrate with her, or some weird thing will have to happen. Yeah,
I just feel like we've seen that trope a lot lately, and it would have been nice if it was something, just a different style of MacGuffin. Logan had that same, like, we've got the important little girl. We've just seen that kind of thing a lot lately. So
all goes back to Willow, I think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
we've got to get the
Willow to blame for that one.
Yeah,
the important little girl.
The important little girl story, or it's the chosen one story where our hero isn't the chosen one, but our hero's job is to transport the chosen one to the chosen place.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the protect the chosen one story. That's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
I'm sure TV Tropes has an actual name for this kind of story.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is off the top of my head. There's a whole bunch of them. I guess
that's the Dragon movie.
The Dragon
not Dragon movie, the Dragon show.
Dragon yes.
Prince. The Dragon Prince.
Dragon Prince
is protect the chosen one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're not thinking of some really famous ones, but there's lots of protect the chosen one stories. Children of Men, he has to get the last pregnant woman in civilization across the, to the people that will be able to do something good with her. A lot of apocalyptic stories, like doomsday kind of stories will have, like, if we can just get such and such a, usually a female, vulnerable female.
Who is or is not pregnant.
Either with the chosen one or something like that.
Yeah.
If we can just get her, I guess the famous example is Terminator. Terminator has come back to kill Sarah Connor, who is pregnant with the chosen one.
Yeah.
We will send back the guy to protect her, and he will impregnate her in a goofy causal loop that will blow your mind. Time travel.
Hashtag time travel.
Hashtag time travel.
Hashtag looper.
Yeah. Looper is a really lame. I liked Looper okay, but looking back on it and knowing how Rian Johnson uses these tropes, Looper is exactly an example of Rian Johnson was probably like, there is this trope. I will figure out how to do my fun thing. Deconstruction of it.
Now he gets to deconstruct a whodunit.
Right. Oh, yeah. Let's not even talk about that.
Yep.
If you want to see him, if you want to see the...
Why would you cast Daniel Craig as a Southerner?
I don't know. They've done that twice now. You know what I think it is? I think it's because Daniel Craig will do it.
Just wants to be done being Bond, maybe.
Yeah, I think Daniel Craig seems like a very serious guy who's probably not always happy with the legacy of Bond. And so he probably likes to do things that are as colorful and different and not James Bond as possible. Yep. Same reason that Evans apparently signed on to do that thing so that he could be crass and lame and not Captain America.
Yep.
Yay!
And display his utter lack of comedic timing in a trailer. Like, that's how bad he's going to be in that movie.
Yeah. Well,
he's bad in the trailer.
You know, on a whim, I watched a little bit of Last Jedi the other day, and you know who else doesn't have any comedic timing is Rian Johnson. That movie has a lot of thudding. Yeah, a lot of like jokes that thud to the ground from like Luke being grumpy and or what's his face does a yo mama joke. Poe Dameron does a like, oh, I'm sorry, I was on the phone for your mother, General Hux.
That was funny in theaters.
Yeah, I remember the audience chuckling at that, but
maybe the audience made me laugh. I haven't watched that movie since. I don't want to watch it again.
No, me neither. I turned it off within 2 minutes, but
I remember in theaters laughing at that joke or not despising the audience for laughing at it. One of the two.
Yeah, I mean, I can laugh at that joke, but it's weird. Like, it shows a weird lack of awareness on Rian Johnson's part that he would even think to include a yo mama joke in Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars isn't really... maybe he got away with it, but why didn't he stop and think about whether it was a good idea in the first place?
Hashtag Ian Malcolm.
Yeah, hashtag Malcolm speech. Hashtag Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson is like, he just needs to be locked in a room with Ian Malcolm and have Ian Malcolm give him that speech over and over again because that's like all he thinks about is like, I could subvert this trope. I could do this thing.
You could, but should you?
Yeah, like, why would you want to? You know, what people actually like is when Luke Skywalker acts like a cool, heroic Jedi.
Are people going to need to know that that's a Jurassic Park reference?
It is. It's the speech from Jurassic Park. No, because they listened to last week's episode about The Lion King, and we referenced it heavily there.
Jeff Goldblum, you know the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. Package it.
I'm just trying to make sure, you know, everybody stays up to speed.
Yep. All right. Sanity at the Movies, produced by me, executive produced by Jake and me. Till next time, folks.
Engage.